So let's talk a little bit about what is science. Well, science is derived from the Latin word scientia, which means knowledge, and that's what science is all about, gaining knowledge. Now, the interesting thing about science is that it's a process, and it uses evidence about the natural world. And because it's a process, it's constantly ongoing. It's not just a collection of facts. It's also very dynamic in that it's open to testing and discussion and revision all through the process. Now, there's three main goals of science, and it's to investigate and understand our natural world, and then to explain events that we see there, and then also to make predictions about what's going to be happening in the future in our natural world based on our current knowledge. Science is different from other human endeavors in that the explanations are based solely on evidence, and that's what's going to separate it from the arts and religion because of that evidence requirement piece. Now, information is going to be gathered in an orderly method, and we know that as the scientific method. And again, we're dealing only with the natural world, not supernatural. Now, science you could consider as being like a can of worms. And when you open that can of worm, which would be research, it yields surprising results that often lead to future studies. And sometimes those are in completely new and unexpected directions. Almost every major scientific discovery raises more questions than it answers. Science and technology are so a part of our everyday, we don't even notice it. Life-changing discoveries like this one, Copernicus discovered that the sun is motionless and the earth revolves around it. We don't even think about that anymore. Newton, considered one of the greatest scientists of all time, figured out that gravity is the force that draws objects together, and that explains why things fall when we let go of them and why planets orbit the sun. This is Michael Faraday. He created a forerunner of a generator, which is what we now use to produce our electricity. And Charles Darwin changed our ideas of how the earth developed through his theory of evolution by natural selection. In the 1860s, Pasteur figured out bacteria cause disease and that we can kill bacteria by heat and disinfectant. And this led to physicians finally washing their hands and sterilizing their equipment, saving millions of lives. Fleming discovered that the mold Penicillium has antibacterial property and can kill bacteria. And this led to the advent of antibiotics. And then Watson and Crick and Wilkins and Franklin worked out the structure of DNA, and work manipulating and understanding DNA continues today. Yet there seems to be a disconnect in some societies, including our own, between science and society. In March of 2015, National Geographic published an article they titled "The War on Science." In the article, Joel Achenbach asked the question, why do many reasonable people doubt science? Now let's take this case in point. The development of the measles vaccine and then the subsequent requirement of American children to be vaccinated against measles starting in the 1950s led to the near eradication of the highly contagious disease, whose worst effects are brain damage and death. But in 1998, Dr. Andrew Wakefield published a study in the science journal Lancet stating that the MMR vaccine was causing a higher rate of autism. But conflicts of interest were discovered. Co-authors withdrew their support for the study. He was found guilty of misconduct, was stripped of his medical license, and the journal article was revoked. He was thoroughly discredited. Yet years later, the idea of a vaccine-autism connection still perpetuates because it is endorsed by celebrities like Jenny McCarthy, who famously said on the Oprah Winfrey Show, "The University of Google is where I got my degree from." This perceived connection caused many parents to decline vaccinating their children, and states started passing laws saying parents could decline vaccines based on personal beliefs. Thus, measles cases and outbreaks have risen, frustratingly and unnecessarily so. Most recently, an outbreak in California started at Disneyland because an infected person came to the most magical place on earth harboring the measles virus. And other visitors there, either too young to be vaccinated were immune suppressed, or had not been vaccinated caught measles. Vaccines aren't the only hot button societal issue: climate change, evolution, oil fracking. To quote Carl Sagan, we live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology. And that's why we take science classes in school, to have a better understanding of the process and the purpose of science. And so when ethical issues and societal issues arise, you can have an intelligent voice in the conversation. Now, someday you might be the voice of the scientist in that conversation. And if that's the case, there's some characteristics that I know that you'll have. One of those is that scientists are naturally curious by nature. Albert Einstein famously said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing." And he also said, "I have no special talent. I am only a passionately curious person." Scientists are a skeptical bunch. They are happy to engage in peer review, sometimes announcing another researcher's data and conclusions just don't hold up. And Carl Sagan once said, "It's the tension between creativity and skepticism that has produced stunning and unexpected findings in science." And then open-mindedness is a requirement for scientists, because finding knowledge inevitably requires uncertainty. And so with that, welcome to biology. Bio is the Greek for life, ology is the study of. So biology is the study of life, of which there are many, many subcategories. Just to name a few, if you're interested in plants, maybe you'll be a botanist. If you're interested in finding life in space, an astrobiologist. If you want to look at the microscopic world, a microbiologist. Hey, if you're interested in studying waste products, scatology is your field.